Here's an update when it comes to SEI in 2026. Nothing I say is financial advice. However, very recently, I saw how SEI made this post saying how they're now averaging well over 1.5 million daily active addresses and how it's up 100% in 4 months, which I find pretty impressive considering how a lot of people thought, oh, when it comes to SEI, it's still down over 60% in the past year. It just basically, even despite the slight recovery, is basically back at a level in which it was just around a month ago when it comes to SEI. I'm totally aware of that. But actually, again, even though nothing I say is financial advice and even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, my perception is that I find this pretty cool because, this is not an easy statistic to kind of achieve in my perspective. People like to say, well, if it's able to do this, why is the price not really doing anything? Well, it's because I think that if there's no altcoin season, right? If the sentiment when it comes to altcoins doesn't return back to where it was like around a year ago or something like that, then all this type of stuff really won't do much in my perspective in terms of the charts, right? Maybe in terms of the fundamentals is a different case, but it won't really do much to the charts. But I'm not necessarily concerned by that because I've seen historically projects that kept on building, kept on doing things, kept on having, new advancements. And it kind of showcased that later on when there was an altcoin season, because sometimes people take a look back at what a project did historically, right? They take a look back what it did, what it has accomplished. And I think overall, if a project has good fundamentals, it kind of contributes, sometimes to the way it's perceived. If a project doesn't really update much, doesn't really do anything, if there is an altcoin season later on, would it even be something that people take a look at if it didn't achieve much? You know what I mean? If it didn't really improve. In some cases, people still take a look at it regardless, but it's not in every single case. I think it's better to be safe than sorry, I suppose, in some cases, right? If I'm a developer, I'd want the best ever fundamentals that I could do, you know? This is just my perspective, as opposed to not. At least I'd like to try. So when it comes to SEI, is the thought process of the hypothetical concept of maybe $2 on my mind? Well, I don't see why not. It's something I'm hypothetically thinking about. It's around 16 and a half times lower than that, though. I'm totally aware of that. But actually, if we consider the market cap it would have at that point, considering current circulating supply, it'd be around 13 billion. BNB literally had a market cap of over 100 billion years ago at one point back in 2021. This is just my thought process. And the thing is this. Okay, when it comes to $2, people like to tell me, well, who cares about that? Well, if I take a look at it like this, right? If I just take a look at, a pretty good moment when it comes to SEI back in 2024 in February, the price was nearly $1, right? And I don't think that was an altcoin season, actually. Granted, that's like nearly 2 years ago at this point, but I'm just saying, had there been an actual altcoin season at that point, would $2 be so much out of the question? Keep in mind again, it was around $1 at that point without really an altcoin season in my perspective. The sentiment when it comes to altcoins is better than right now, but I don't think that was an actual altcoin season. So if there is an altcoin season, it can't just double that? This is my perspective. We'll wait and see though, but I'm just saying. Even at that point, it was just around 2 times away from $2. So if there was an actual altcoin season with $2 actually surprised me. I don't know if it hypothetically would, just because it was kind of close not too long ago. And also on top of that, there's allegedly within this space, right? I'm not talking about, say, not for an individual project. I'm just saying within this space overall. Allegedly, there's over 600 million owners. That's over 500 million. I mean, okay, that's not 10% of the world's population, but at least the way you take a look at it is that that's way more than before, back in 2021, in which we saw around 300 million owners at that peak of that cycle, right? And we have over 600 million owners right now without an altcoin season. We've never seen Ethereum at 10 grand. We've never seen Bitcoin at 150 grand even, right? We've never seen that, let alone like 200 grand or something. And still, there's this many owners. And the thing is, people like to say, well, SEI has so many competitors. Well, really? I mean, okay, there's a lot of memes out there, But in terms of actual projects that can actually compete with this fundamentally, I don't know if there's too many in my perspective. But this is just my mindset. My kind of perception is this. Allegedly, SEI is the fastest Ethereum virtual machine blockchain for high-frequency applications. Now, okay, this is a very vague statement, right? But if I actually take a look at the statistics, it doesn't surprise me too much if maybe that is the case, because allegedly high-frequency applications can be built that settle in 400 milliseconds. That's less than half a second. And now some people may be thinking, okay, who cares? That's like less than half a second, whatever. Some other projects out there, it's like 700 milliseconds. Who cares about 300 milliseconds? Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be able to know the difference between 100 or 200 milliseconds just from my visual perception. Like, there's no way I can know that. But you know who could notice that? Like, maybe developers who have programs and something like that that know stuff like this, or enterprises. You know what I mean? For an enterprise, being able to shave off 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, that sometimes could matter because they're prioritizing efficiency. 100 milliseconds saved a day, right? If we just don't consider it once a day, let's say it's hundreds of times a day, accounted for a week, months, years, that could matter for an enterprise that's looking to have the slightest advantage possible. In the retail side of things, a lot of people could care less about that. I'm totally aware of that because, how could we notice that? But for an enterprise, they think about the long term usually. They think about the accumulation and how that could affect it years down the line, months, So when people like to say, well, no one's going to care about 400 milliseconds, maybe I don't care. Maybe it wouldn't really matter to me. But for an enterprise, they could care. This is my perspective. So yeah, that's the way to take a look at it. However, even besides all that, allegedly SEI is backed by Circle, the creator of USDC, and even Coinbase. Keep in mind, Coinbase is not only in the S&P 500, it's publicly listed, and so is Circle, right? Circle is publicly listed. And USDC is just very massive overall. So in the grand scheme of things, I do find it pretty impressive. I do also like the AI ecosystem, though, when it comes to SEI. I find it pretty okay as well. I don't think it's necessarily the greatest of all time or something like that, but just SEI overall hasn't been around for that long. I think that SEI has accomplished quite a lot, again, taking a look at its ecosystem, taking a look at kind of the advancements that it had, sort of in terms of the fundamentals, also taking a look at who it's backed by. For kind of the moment in time it's been around, it's achieved pretty impressive things, I think, so far fundamentally. Now, I don't think I've seen an altcoin season during this cycle, but that's besides the point, right? I think that SEI overall has accomplished quite a lot, I think, in the time that it's already existed so far. So I'm a little bit curious to see what could happen if there's an altcoin season. Who knows, right? But I'm just saying I'm a little bit curious. I like to be waiting for something than not. Because, for instance, I was living my life back in 2014, 2015, and all this, right? But was I holding Bitcoin? No, I was not. Did it do its thing without me? Yeah, it did. Whether or not I'm in this space is going to do whatever. It could go down, it could go up, it could go whatever direction, whether I'm in this space or not. So I like to be waiting. Because had I waited for Bitcoin 10 years ago, then it's a completely different case. But I cannot go back in time, of course, right? There's no way I could do that. So that's why I like to be waiting right now. I can't go back in time. The only thing I can do is just the right now, the present. So I like to be waiting for something as opposed to not. I'll have to wait and see, though, as to what could hypothetically truly happen if there was an altcoin season. But when it comes to SEI, I'm still a fan. That's the way to take a look at it. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but when it comes to the projects that I'm a fan of, I just dollar cost average once a month. That's it. I don't do any more than that. I don't do any less than that. That's it. I'll just wait and see what happens. It's a little bit boring. I get it. Yeah. It's not the most exciting thing out there, but I'm not into pulling up some price charts, drawing some random triangles and saying, oh, falling wedge pattern and all this. That's not my vibe. If I like a project, I just stay patient with it. That's it. And I just wait and see what happens. I just wait. And I'm a little bit curious, what could happen during an altcoin season. That's it. But yeah, that's besides the point. I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you have a very nice day. But yeah, that's an update, I guess, when it comes to SEI in 2026. However, I'll be sure to hopefully make more videos when it comes to SEI if there's more updates or if there's more news when it comes to SEI. But yeah, I want to say thank you for watching again. I hope you all have a very nice day.